Hello and welcome back. This will be the last Revit video. I guess I should say that this video is going to actually be long, so I might end up splitting this video up into two parts depending on how long it gets. I really want to start from the beginning of a small residential one story, maybe two levels, but definitely just focus on one story. And I want to take that from start to a couple different sheets and a couple different views. So it has the potential to be kind of long. So we're basically going to start with importing AutoCAD files and tracing over those, using those as underlays. And a couple of new things that we'll look at are creating sheets. That will be obviously at the end of the video. If that's all you're interested in, you can skip to the end. We won't talk about that until much further away. We'll talk about creating tags, which will be semi-close to the end. And it looks like that'll be it. I want to talk about stairs again. So there'll be a set of stairs in this project as well. And I think that's probably about it. So after this video, there'll be a week break in between. I doubt there will be any new Revit videos next week. So in 2 weeks, you can look for, if you're interested in the 3D Studio Max introduction, there'll be 7 videos, just kind of in the same format as these videos to follow. So look for those in a couple of weeks as we kind of move on with our projects into that. So for those students that are actually taking this course, you're going to need the file, and that will be available on Moodle. So you can download that as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. The first thing, as I mentioned before, that I usually like to do, in this case, if I have an underlay, let's say you're working with engineers or MEP guys that are, in a completely another country or even another state. A lot of times you'll be working in Revit. They'll be working and maybe AutoCAD, so there's the need to bring AutoCAD files in as underlays and attachments to your sheets. Sometimes you want to see them, sometimes you don't. So you really want to have the ability to modify that as needed. So if we look under Insert, you'll see that we have 2 different options here. And if you're familiar with AutoCAD, you'll remember that there's things called XREFs. And there's things called what would be almost a block. And this necessarily isn't a block. An import does just as it says. It brings that CAD file into the Revit file, and it's part of that Revit file. Whereas a link just links up to that AutoCAD file and uses it when you need it. So it does less damage on your resources as far as file size and the ability to change things from remote locations. So usually I'll use link instead of project. That way I have the ability to update the external files as needed, and I can unload these and load them as I need them. Whereas this is a little more finalized. So when you're using things for underlays, it's best to go ahead and link those. So I'll select the link CAD there. And you'll want to browse to wherever that file is going to be. You'll notice there's some settings down here. These are all pretty self-explanatory, and usually 9 times out of 10, they're going to be how you need them. You want to auto-detect the units. If there's a specific unit that you knew it was supposed to be in, I guess you could select that, but auto-detect usually works. If you want to bring all of your layers in that visible or specify, and this just has to do with the position that it comes in. And we haven't really talked about, and we won't talk about shared coordinates or anything like that. So center to center is going to work fine for this case, and at whatever level you would want that to be placed on. For example, if I had multiple levels, or if I wanted this to be on a different level, I would need to create that level first. So level 1's fine here. I'll hit OK. And you'll notice there that it drops it in, just as it said, in the center of my drawing. What would be the center of my drawing? Remember, Revit doesn't actually have an origin, so it would be the center of how it's kind of set up for the template. Now, a couple things to point out while we have this here. I'm going to go ahead and select that, and I'm going to go to Manage, the Manage tab, And then you'll see under the Manage Project, there's a Manage Links button. I'm going to select that. Okay, so this is kind of like the XREF window or dialog in AutoCAD. Notice that by default we're in the Revit tab here, so we could also link other Revit files to our file if we wanted to. It's not necessarily the same concept of a central file, which is a topic beyond the scope of this video. A central file is basically a file that everybody uses. It's like the main file, and everybody takes little bits and pieces of that file and works on it. That way everybody can work on the same project at the same time. This is more kind of like the AutoCAD approach, where you would almost want to just use this as overlays or underlays, or you wouldn't necessarily use this as a final addition. What we have imported here is a CAD format because, right, it's a DWG, so that's going to be in the CAD format, and you'll notice that that drawing's here. And just like in the XREF window in AutoCAD, you have your status, your file size, the save path, and the type of path that your save path is, and all of this is fine. So if I didn't want this in here anymore, let's say that I've traced all of my walls and I'm done with it, instead of deleting it, sometimes it's best to just go ahead and unload it. Because when I unload it and hit OK, the drawing disappears, but if I go back to Manage Links, you'll notice it's still part of my drawing. The drawing's not actually loaded, but at least Revit remembers that you had that file and it remembers where it was. So if I want it back, I can hit Reload after selecting it and hit OK, and it'll come right back where it was before. So this is one excellent thing about using links and XREFs, is the ability to turn this on and off. Obviously, when you have a large project, it's going to cut down in file size as well, because you're not going to have all these files and all this vector work inside of your Revit file. It's actually just going to be borrowed from somewhere else. So it's important to remember, if you send this Revit file to somebody, for example, if you send it to a buddy or a partner or a client, that if you have links that need to be part of the drawing, you will need to send these links with them as well, because again, this isn't actually part of the Revit file. It's just kind of borrowing it while you have Revit open. So if you're going to send this file and the file depends on them seeing this underlay, then you need to include this when you send it in your transmission. Otherwise, it's going to be missing. Okay, that's the disadvantage of XREFs, if you can consider it a disadvantage. If you needed it to always be in your drawing, you would want to use maybe an import. Remember, that was the other option. So that's really the only drawback of linking a file. So I'm going to leave it because I need it. So the next observation is the lines came in. If you had the AutoCAD file, you would see the colors are actually inverted from what they were before, and that was an option on the import. However, either way, whenever I import an underlay that I'm going to use to trace, I usually don't want it to have any color at all, because it's distracting from what I'm going to trace. So usually when I bring a file like this in, I'll gray it. I'll turn all the layers to gray so that I can see what's going on a little better. So if you remember to adjust anything that has to do with line color, line weight, line thickness, all that stuff's done in the visibility and graphics override in your properties of your view. Okay, it has nothing to do with me selecting this object. Notice in the properties, there's nothing here that has to do with the view of this guy. But if I click outside in the white, now I'm on my view properties of this entire view, and I have my visibility graphics overrides here, so I can hit edit. And this should look familiar because we went through this, I think, in the first or maybe the second video. Okay, we're actually going to take our attention from the Revit stuff, which is the model categories and annotation categories, and we're going to look at the imported categories, right? Because even though we linked it, it's still kind of an import. So any link that you do is still going to be under import categories. And there's our drawing. If we hit the plus sign, we'll notice all of the layers that were used in AutoCAD for this drawing are here. And I can override each one of these layers independently if I want to. Or I can turn them on and off if I don't want them. For example, the wall layer, that should turn off the exterior walls. Notice it turns off all of my exterior walls there. So I can override this CAD, not necessarily the drawing itself, but I can override the layers. So what I want to do is select the first one coming down to the very last one and hold Shift and then select. And select Override, and this will override the line projection surface, the projection surface line. I'm sorry, the surface would be more for the patterns, projections more for the lines. I guess it could go either way, but we're interested in overriding the lines. We want those to be gray. So I'm going to select all of them, so select override, and then I'm going to select the color to be a gray color. All right, and we'll see that that updates there, and if I hit OK and then hit apply, you'll notice that my lines here turn to gray. And that's going to make it a little easier to see when we go to start tracing this thing. Let's say you want to go the other way. You want your colors back. It's no big deal. You do the same thing. You select all of them again. This time you hit clear overrides, and this will take it back to the default. See, when I hit clear overrides, I have no override there, and I hit apply, and I get my line colors back, or whatever adjustments that I made. But we want those gray, so we're going to go ahead and do that one more time. All right, so now you can see it's going to be a little easier to tell what's going on. And just rolling over this reminds me, when it turns blue like that, that means it can move. And if this is going to be our underlay for our entire project, we want to make sure that this doesn't ever move. So I'm going to pin this by selecting it and hitting the pin tool. Okay, that will assure me that this isn't going anywhere. The last thing you want to do is start drawing your walls and accidentally nudge over this underlay on accident, and now all of your walls will be off or skewed however far you accidentally moved it, and it can be a bit of a pain on a big project. So if this is the basis of everything, it's almost like a grid line or your grid planes. You want to make sure you pin that so it doesn't go anywhere. Okay, so from here we're ready to start tracing walls. There's several approaches you could do it. Basically for this project it's real simple. You have two wall types. Just to double check the thicknesses, don't forget that you can use the measure tool up here under modify measure, and I can select these two walls and I can see that that wall is 8 inches. And while we have the measure tool up, we'll look at this other wall, 5 inches. So I'm looking for 8 inches and 5 inches. So I'm going to go to my wall tool, and we're just going to stick to generic walls for this project so far. We might change it if we decide to do anything special, but for the most part, I think we'll just stick to generic walls to keep it simple. So I'll hit generic 8 inch, and I'll start with my exterior walls first. Okay, so notice here under location line, I have it set to wall center line. So when I draw this wall, I need to make sure that I'm snapping to the center line, and you'll see there now it lines up perfectly. Okay, but if you want it to be a little more planned, it's best to go ahead and start drawing it accurately, and that's going to be, pick one of these faces, whether it's interior or outside. So if I want to snap to the finished face of the interior wall, I would select finished face interior and select there. You'll notice obviously that that's a problem, because Revit's by default, Revit set the interior of that wall to the left side. We need it to the right side. So if you remember back to placing components, if you hit the space bar while you're in a command, notice it flips it. So hitting space bar will flip that object while you're in the draw command. And that's what you're going to want to do. You want the interior of your face to be where the interior is supposed to be. That way, if the wall structure ever changes, everything's oriented the way it's supposed to. If it was accidentally drawn this way, then you're going to have bricks on the inside of your building, and you're going to have drywall on the outside because we selected finished face interior. So the orientation does matter here, not necessarily for generic wall. In our case, we're drawing with generic wall. You would never tell the difference. But if you had an actual nice wall structure, you would definitely tell the difference. So I'm going to leave it on this setting, but there's one more adjustment I want to make, and that's the unconnected height. You can see right now, if we start drawing this, all of my walls are going to be 20 feet high. And unfortunately, this house doesn't have the luxury of 20 feet between each level. So I'm going to change this to level 2. That way I can adjust this entire exterior wall using my grids, using my levels. You remember in the elevation views here. Now my walls are going to be 10 feet high, but they're also going to be constrained to this level. So whatever height I make this level, my walls will go with it. So I want to make sure my walls are, if you haven't saved the project, you can go ahead and save the project. Alright, sorry about that little glitch there. I actually, before I started this video, decided to change the hotkey for my save, or to quit the video. So when I was typing the file name, S was the key that I chose to change it, not thinking that I was going to actually use the keyboard. So here I am again. So I've saved my project right where we left off, back, and ready to go. So here we go, level 2, finished face interior. So all this is good. So we're ready to start drawing. Remember, if it doesn't start off right, you can hit the space key and that'll orient it in the right direction. And as I'm drawing, I'm using my middle mouse button and holding that in to pan. You can see it would be a bit of a pain if you're especially working on a laptop. You'll probably want to get a hold of a miniature mouse that you can carry around with you or something, because any CAD program is a pain without an actual mouse, unless you're really good. So go back around and close that up. Now you could pin this to the actual CAD drawing if you wanted to. I'm not going to do that in this example because I'm guessing that this underlay is going to change here and there in the future. So as long as your underlay is pinned, you'll be okay. All right, so there's the exterior walls. I'm going to go ahead and start on the interior walls. Go to my wall tool and generic 5-inch wall. Okay, now remember, these are doors, okay? They have headers, so when you draw your wall, you're actually going to draw a wall all the way across. You're not going to stop for the openings, because if you stop for the openings, you're not going to have a header when you try to place doors, and you're not going to be able to place a door. Remember, to place a door in Revit, they are hosted by the wall. You can remember when you create a family, it asks you for a template, and if you were going to create a door, you would want it to be hosted inside of a wall. So to draw a door in Revit, you need a wall. So when you draw these, you're going to want to go straight across. And because this is an interior wall with the same finish on both sides, I'm not necessarily worried about interior, exterior, how we were before. So this time I'm going to snap to the wall center line. If I had a special wall, I would be a little more concerned about the orientation, but since it's, again, like I said, the same material on both sides, I'm not worried about it as much. So I'm just making sure to snap here to the middle. Remember, this is an underlay, but the line tool still works. So if you miss your, like if I'm off, you probably aren't off that far on your wall. But if you miss the wall, it's okay. Just keep drawing, and then once you're done with that, go to your align tool under the modify there, and you can select this to align it as well. So you select the underlay first, and then your wall. Notice that it aligns to that object. So your align tool works for these walls as well, using an underlay. Whoops, getting click happy there. There we go. This is one example here. You'll make sure when you draw this line, if you're following this tutorial, that you snap to the right place. You'll notice it's not exactly on there, and you end up with a little bump there. There shouldn't be a bump there. That should be smooth. So you just need to use your align tool again here to align to this wall, and you'll notice it's just a subtle change, but enough to cause that little bump. So that bump should be gone there. Yeah. Couple more to go here. If I hit an end segment like that, I'll hit escape. That's how I'm jumping to. So once I get there, I just hit escape and jump to the next line command. We'll leave that there for now. That's actually not supposed to be there, but we'll take care of that. All right, so it looks like we have all of our walls. So go ahead and catch up, and I'll see you back here in just a second. All right, so the next step is to start plugging in doors and windows. So there's probably going to be some doors that aren't going to be in Revit, and we'll have to duplicate those. Not necessarily create a new family, we'll just stick with the same family, but duplicate what's already shown. So you can see it's kind of hard right now to see what's going on. So if the thick lines annoy you or you're bothered by the thick lines, I just wanted to show you that under the View tab, you can turn thin lines on, and that will get rid of the thickness of some of those lines. So it's almost like in AutoCAD, if you're familiar with the show line thickness at the bottom, that's kind of down by ortho and snap. This kind of does the same thing. Usually when I'm tracing, though, I'll leave on the thick line so I can tell where I've been. You can still kind of tell here. It's just a little harder to see the contrast. My eyes are getting old, so I like to have those nice thick lines for now, and then later I usually like to turn on thin lines. So I'll leave those on for now. Another thing to note when we start adding these doors is it's going to be hard to place these because we can't actually see them. However, if you remember, there's probably 4 or 5 different types of view types that you can view, and those are down here. And right now we're in the hidden line view. There's the shaded view, which will give you kind of like the poché look. Consistent colors. These are more for more 3D stuff. Wireframe is what we're interested here. Notice when I turn on wireframe, that allows me to see through the wall, so now I can see where the jambs for the doors are, and also where the windows are located. So without this being on wireframe, it's kind of hard to figure out where you're going to place those without getting measurements. So for now, we're going to turn this to wireframe so that we can see through and start placing some of these doors. So unfortunately, it's probably going to be best to go through here, and you'll probably have to measure them just to make sure. So each one, as I go through here, I'm actually going to make sure I get the right door size by measuring the door opening here. And we'll see that that's 28 inches. So when I go to Home and Door, and we're going to stick with single flush doors are fine. You'll notice that door size isn't in here, right? So the closest one is 30 inches. And if I was to place a 30-inch door, it would be a little bit too big there. You can see that I'm judging by the door panels. Notice how long the other door panel is compared to what actually needs to be in there. No big deal. Quick fix. So I'm going to go back to door. And if you remember, I can edit the type of this 30 by, actually that needs to be 30 by 84. So I can edit the type of this. But remember, if we're going to change anything in here, and I can't stress this enough, every time you come in here, you need to make sure you duplicate this. Because if I make a change here, it's still going to be named 30 by 84, but my door is actually going to be whatever I change it to. Now every time that I go to place this door, I think that's 30 inches. It's not. So if you're going to change a type property, always duplicate it first. So I'll hit duplicate, and I'll name it according to how big I'm going to make it. So I'll give it the name 28 by 84. Now remember, this is only the name. I still need to come down here and give it a width of 28 inches. Hit apply. Okay, so now it's named 28 by 84. Now it's actually 28 inches by 84. So now I'm ready to go. So that's all I needed to do to make that door. So because I'm just creating a new type, if you remember from the last video, this is just a type of that single flush family. So I can hit OK there. Remember, just like the wall, if I hit the space bar, it will flip that door. So if I want it to be left hand or right hand, I can just simply drop that in there. Now I like to drop it a little off so that I can use the align tool, because I can use the align tool for these doors as well. So I'll go to modify and align, and I'll align that to there, and that moves that door. So now that's perfect. One down. Right away too, you'll notice that Revit likes to drop in tags, which is great when you're ready for them. However, you don't need this until a construction plan. And right now we're only working on a finish or a floor plan. So we don't need these right now in this view. But we're going to need them in other views, so we don't want to delete that. We want to keep it so it's still around, but we also, we don't want it in this view. So what you're going to do, and since we're not going to want any tags, window tags, door tags, wall tags, we're not going to want any of those things in this view. I am going to select this. I'm going to right click. After selecting it, I'm going to do hide in view, and I'm going to do category. Now, by doing category, that's going to assure me that anything that's a tag will not show up in this view, but it's not going to delete it. It's just going to hide it. It's not going to get rid of it completely. If I just wanted this one tag, this number one door tag, to be gone, I could select elements. But I want all of the tags to disappear, so I'm going to do hide in view, which corresponds to level 1 over in my floor plan. And I want all tags, so I'll select categories, and that'll hide that. And to show you that it's actually still there, it's just hidden, I can turn on the light bulb down here, and you'll notice anything that's in the magenta color is hidden. I can turn that off to get rid of that again. So it's still there, ready for when I actually need it. And remember, these tags are still showing up because that's part of the underlay. That's part of the CAD file that we're tracing, so those won't be hidden right now. Okay, so from here, add this door. I need to measure it to see how big it is. Okay, that's 30 inches. We left out there. There's actually a 30-inch door in here that we know of. So we can select doors, and the 30 by 84 is already in here. Yeah, here it is. Okay, there's not really anywhere to snap, so it's probably best that you just place it not where it's supposed to be and then use the align tool. And you can either align the opening here to the opening, or you can do the doors to the door. Since it's the exact same door, you can align these panels. But to show you, I could select the underlay here, and then select that, and that'll also bump that down. We're not going to be able to do what I wanted to do there, which was a mirror. No big deal. This is the same door, so I'm not going to measure that one because I know that it's the same door into the same rooms here. So select door, and I'll hit the space bar to flip it. And I'll place it a little bit off, remember, and then I'll use my align tool. Oops. And kind of as an extra security measure, remember we locked the underlay. So if we accidentally choose the order backwards, we're not going to accidentally shift our floor plan if we select the align tool backwards. The only thing that can move in this case is that door because everything else is locked down. So if you'll notice here, this actually isn't a door. This is more like a cubby back here that goes in. So we need to trim this up. And since it's we want it to continue on this side and we want it to continue on this side, we first need to split this. So the split tool, if you remember, is up here. Split that. Split it. There we go. So after I split it, I can trim it. And remember, you select the walls that you want to keep, unlike AutoCAD. And that opens that up. And I need to measure this door because I can't remember. 30 inches. Good. So I'm kind of just going around. You could start doing bifold doors here, but since I'm in the groove of doing these regular flush doors, I'm just going to stick with those, and then we'll come back around and do the bifolds. You could do it however, whatever works best for you. I'm So we've already created that door. We don't need to create it again. It's now part of this file. So you can find that door that we created earlier here, 28 by 84. Okay, I know it's hard to see on this plan right now. These stairs, you enter here, these stairs actually go up to level 2. This door is in the kitchen. It actually opens up to stairs that are below these stairs. So when you see this door here in this plan, this is actually, it goes below these stairs to another level of stairs that are below, that go to the basement. So this door goes to the basement while this stair actually goes up to level 2. Okay, when you see an opening like this isn't notice there's no swing or anything like that. This is called a cased opening. I'm sure you're aware, but in Revit it's also a cased opening. And it's kind of weird how you have to place these. You don't place them as doors, you place them as components, but they're in the door folder, if you can believe that. So what you need to do is load that in first. So you go to Home and Component, and after you select Component, you go to Load Family, Doors, and here's Opening Cased. Okay, so that's just a regular cased opening that has trim around it. So I'll hit Open that family. And you'll see it's giving me some dashed lines there. However, I'm going to hit Escape because I need to make sure I measure this to make sure it's the right size before I place it. 3 feet. So I can go back to Home, and remember I'm selecting Component for this. This is set to 3 feet, so that's good. So I can just select here, and I'm still not going to drop it on top of it. I'm going to use my, again, you'll notice I use my Align tool for everything. That way I know for sure I'm snapping to where I need to be snapping to. Otherwise, I'm just guessing. So I would recommend that you get in the habit of not placing it anywhere close to where you want it. That way you can just just drop it in there and then modify and align. And it's one extra step, but it assures you that you're doing things right. And it's good to do things right in this business. All right, so 56 inches. This is going to be an odd one, I have a feeling. So I'm going to delete this dimension. Same deal. Home and Component. And I'm going to do Edit Type. Right away, as soon as I come in here, duplicate it to 56 inches. And my width is going to be 56 inches. Okay. So there's that new opening that we can put in there. It's properly named. It's not going to interfere with anything else that we have. Staying organized and doing things in a system save you a lot of time on projects like this. So, and there's one more cased opening here. .39 inches. I know that that's not going to be in there either, so I need to duplicate a 39. Alright, so I think that's all of the, oh, there's one more up here. Snapped to the wrong line. 32 inches. I think there's a 32-inch case opening in there. All right. Get all of them? All right, let's go ahead and do the entry door here. A couple things. This is an entry door. These are separate components under the side light category. So those, I think those are, we're going to find those under components as well in the door category. But this is going to be a different, I didn't put this door in here yet because it's going to be a special kind of door. Compared to just having a flush, we're going to go ahead and put like a nice panel door or something with glass in here. So this is probably 3 feet, but just to make sure. Yeah, so that's 3 feet. So I'm going to go home, and then now I'm going to go back to door. And you'll notice single flush is the only family loaded. So if we want other door types, we need to load the family. And I'll go to my doors folder. So you can see these are, well, I don't need a double, but if I had a single panel down here, you can see that the different panels on the doors here. So these are the ones Revit gives you. Obviously, you know how to create families now. Doors are families, so you can create any door that you wanted to. You would just need to, when you start your door template, you're going to want to start with, or when you start creating your door, you're going to want to start with the door template so that it's hosted to the wall. Now, here's actually one with side lights with it. I don't remember using it. Let's go ahead and check it out and see. So if we can get both of these in one, that would be nice. Yeah, that actually is going to work out perfect. Cool. So, and it's actually the right size and everything, and it looks nice enough. So, so I'll hit the space bar here and flip that guy. And I'm going to move it over so that I can use the align tool here. Cool. These guys, the side lights are actually backwards. I don't know if this family is going to let us adjust that. Let's see if the properties here. Nothing even in the type properties that would allow us to change that. The issue here with this is the door is actually a little bit bigger than what I used before too. My issue is usually the deeper part of the window goes on the inside, but I want my door to swing this way. If I hit this, it's going to swing both of them. So this is an idea, you know, for future people making families that like to make families. You might want to incorporate something that would allow people to flip these in other directions as well. I don't see any other buttons kind of hidden out here anywhere. So we're going to have to do it the old school way. So we'll have to delete this. I apologize for taking you down the wrong path there, but it's, I guess, a good way to learn. And I'm going to go back to my door, and I'm going to load just a single panel door. This will work. And I want it to be 36 by 84, so that's good. Hit spacebar to flip my swing. Do my little align jig here. Good, and now I'm going to jump back to the Home tab. I'm going to select Component, Load, and again, I think these are under doors. I don't really create side lights a whole lot. Yeah. So there's one version of the side light. This one's a little more accurate, so we'll do side light 2. This is a first. Okay, so when you get this error, I loaded it under the wrong thing. So when I went to component and load, that was actually incorrect. So let me try loading it by going to doors and see if, let me actually try Windows first because I don't feel like doors would be correct. But let's try Windows. So Windows, and then we're actually still going in the door folder, which makes no sense. And that worked. So the error that I got there was because I was trying to load the sidelights as a component when actually they're a window, that's stored in a door folder. So if you can master that concept, please let me know. It would be a first. So I'm just going to drop this in here. And I'm going to flip this. Notice that this one's on this side. This one is up a little bit higher, so that just means it needs to be flipped. So you need to find that little arrow, and it's hiding behind this window tag. You can see it peeking out there. And if I flip that, you'll notice that that flips now. Those are aligned, and as long as these are 12 inches, we should be okay. If not, we might need to make an adjustment on the size of that. So I'll just align this, and we'll see. Yeah, that's fine. So that's good. Again, with the door tags, we don't want to show the window tags either. So we don't want to delete them because we're going to need them when we do our construction plan. So we're not doubling the work on ourselves. We're just going to hide these in this view. So hide in view by category. So that way all window tags will be hidden. All right, so that takes care of the entry with the side lights. We just do the bifold doors here. Those are just regular old doors, so those will be in the doors, but we'll have to load those. There's just 2 panels on these. And I guess I should just go ahead and measure these. I'm trying not to make the video super long, so I'm trying not to skip steps here. But at the same time, I'm trying to compromise. So that was 3 feet, 36 by 84. That's good. That's what we want. I'll drop that in there. And I'm getting this constraint error because I'm trying to create a door where 2 walls join, which isn't physically possible. So I just need to drop that in there closer. Once you get the concept of Revit, it's a lot of fun to use. It's pretty straightforward. You know, there's just the little quirks that any program has that you just need to kind of figure out on your own. And once you get over that, you're usually okay to go. Things like, you know, view properties and stuff like that are the kind of things that somebody can help show you. But other than that, it just takes practice and experience. Which I guess would be true with almost anything. So I would just say practice as much as you can with whatever, you know, just even if it's measuring your house or your dorm rooms or your dorm floor or whatever, just finding random floor plans on the internet and tracing them or redeveloping them or, you know, whatever it is. There's plenty of videos out here besides what I make too. So definitely you're going to want to use that to the fullest. But like I said, once we get into 3D Studio Max, it's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll be taking our Revit models directly into 3D Studio Max and making them look, you know, as close to photorealistic as we possibly can. All right, so it looks like we got all of our bifold doors, all of our interior doors, our entry door. There's a sliding glass door here. So this is actually a sliding glass door that we need to drop in there. That's under door. We're going to have to load that in. Sliding should be, let's set the panel there. The glass. No, that's a double swing door, so that's not what we're looking for. Let's pick the two panel for now. Yeah, it's like, oh, they're glass. It's just not named right. You can see in the little picture when the property's saying that that's actually what it's supposed to be. It's just on the wrong side. So I've already placed it, but that's no big deal. You can select them and still remember just do that. The width's not right though. So I just need to measure this. 5'8", so it's 68 inches. So I'm going to select this and remember edit type. Actually, there's already a 68 in there. I just need to change it to a 68. So with it selected, I can come to the drop down 68 by 84, and I need to realign it. There we go. That's better. So that's a sliding glass door. Everything else is windows. Everything else are windows. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so let's go ahead and drop those in there. Same deal as doors. We're just going to be dropping windows. For the sake of the time of this video, I'm going to just select items that are close. Obviously, we've been through the doors. I might do a couple windows just to show you, but really just for the sake of time, I just want to kind of get things moving along here. So these are actually case windows. We need to load those. So I'll go to load family, and this time jump into the windows folder. Casement with trim. Let's see. Double hung. I'm sorry, they're double hung windows. And I'm going to skip the trim for now. No, that's all right. We'll go ahead and do double hung with trim. And let's see, 36 by 48. Really? That's the biggest? All right. So I'm going to go ahead for this first one, and I'm going to hit escape there. I'm going to go back to window and edit type. And I didn't measure it, so that was a mistake, but I'm guessing maybe 40 inches wide. Oops, duplicate. While you were in here, you could also make the adjustments to the sill height, you know, how far off of the floor you want that window to be. The defaults are going to be fine, but if you wanted to change that kind of stuff, you're going to do it inside the type property, so you would still want to make your own type for that. And then even still in the actual properties of the window, let's place that one first. If I select this window here, you can adjust the head height here and the sill height as well. So you can adjust these things outside of the type properties as well. And obviously if you do that, it's not depending on the actual type. So another way to adjust the sill height. But we're going to go ahead and leave those at the default height. And that, like I said, is a little bit bigger than what it should be. You want to make sure you get it on the right side though. I'm going to flip that so that that aligns. It's a little bit bigger, but I'm going to keep going. For anybody following the tutorial, I definitely recommend that you take the time though. I'll give you some time here. I'll stop in after I get the windows placed for you to catch up. But I definitely recommend that you make these the actual sizes. If you're in my class, if you're enrolled in my class, I'll definitely be checking for it. So don't think you get out that easy. You definitely have to make the changes. But lucky, I think there's only a couple more window types that you would have to make. I just to keep moving here. Was this one the right? Yeah, that's application. This is actually, this huge window here is actually a bunch of little windows. It's not one big window. You're not going to be able to, basically what I'm saying is you're not going to be able to find a window that matches this by loading windows. It's also not a double hung case window. It's a different type of window. So I'm going to go to window and load a different type of family for that. It's actually just a fixed window. That'll work. Fixed. It gave me that error because fixed was already loaded. 36 by 48. And these were created just by simply just placing 3 windows close together. And if you're going to try to align these, since mine aren't lining up, or at least since I'm not sure if my dimensions are lining up, I might have problems getting this to look right. But if you actually create the window sizes, the widths that need to be there, you should have better luck. What am I trying to do here? Align. See how that window's a little too long? Let's see. Guess I could. 36. It's strange how the windows jump up in sizes. Doesn't make much sense. All right, so for this one, I'm going to go ahead and at least make sure this one's right, because I don't care if the outside ones are a little bit bigger, but this definitely needs to be right. I'm going to delete this so I make sure that I'm. All right, 33.5. All right, so that one's good. It just needs to be flipped the other way. And I want to make sure that this other guy aligns to this wall so that these sashes are the same width, and that overhang's okay for this. A few more windows here, and then it looks like we are ready to move on. So it's pretty simple stuff. It just takes one of those things that just takes time. These are back to casement windows, and they're, again, 2 windows beside each other. Or I'm sorry, not casement. I keep saying casement, they're double hungs. Window's even bigger than that, so that would need a bigger custom window. We'll go ahead and do that one. I'll measure this one. .44. Now this window you can't tell again because you don't have elevations to work off of. It's above a sink. So the sill height for this window, I'm going to hit OK here. I renamed it, but I didn't actually change it. I don't think I changed dimensions. So that's what I'm saying is, if you don't duplicate it or you make a mistake like that, then you've got something that says that it's 44 inches, but it really isn't. So I need to go back in there and change that width to 44 inches. All right, now, again, like I was saying, the sill height for this needs to be the top of the countertop is going to be 34 to 36, plus you have a 4-inch backsplash usually, especially behind a sink. So that's 40 inches, and then you're going to want a little bit of space in between that. So you want your sill height for this window to be about 42 inches. All right, so there's all the windows, and we'll stop here and take a break. Go ahead and catch up if you're still working on stuff, or if you need to take a break or whatever. Stretch your feet, legs, and I don't know how you can stretch your feet, but I'll see you back in a second. All right, so we have completed probably the largest chunk of the project is just creating all the walls and doors and windows and all that stuff. Obviously placing furniture and stuff, since we're not going to have anything specific for this project. We're just going to use the furniture Revit gives us for some of these rooms, just to kind of get used to placing components. So if you wanted to create your custom families or place your custom families, that would obviously be fine. The kitchen's going to require some work when we do our built-in cabinetry as a custom in-place family. The tags and stuff we've been saving. If we turn on the hidden thing, we'll notice all of our tags are still here, right? So we didn't lose those at all, and that's great because it saves time. We just need to organize them a little better, maybe, but it saves a lot of time in the end when it comes to placing those. So I'm going to turn that back off to unreveal the hidden items. And just to kind of give you an idea of what's happening here, I'm going to go to my manage. Remember, go to manage links, and I'm going to go to my CAD formats. And I'm going to unload this for a second. And this is what we're left with. So we've done a pretty good job of reproducing that. And I'm probably, for the most part, going to work off of this from here on out. Because I don't need the CAD thing anymore. I know what the rooms are. If you needed to know what your room names were, you might want to keep that open. But if you just follow what I'm doing, we can probably leave that off for now. Okay, so since this is going to be our floor plan, this will be considered our furniture plan. You know what? Actually, let's go ahead and create the construction plan first. Let's make this our construction plan. So if you've had construction documents or you're familiar with construction documents, This is where all the measurements go. This is where all your notes go and all your keynotes. Now we're not going to necessarily do notes. Maybe on the sheets we'll do a set of notes just to show you how to do it. But what we're going to do here is we're not going to have any furniture or anything like that. We're basically going to start adding all of our notes and everything. In order to do that, we do need to have our casework installed, and our plumbing fixtures need to be on this sheet. So that will be our next step, I guess. So before we start annotating anything, we'll go ahead and finish off the actual construction of the project. So I want to focus on the kitchen area now, and the actual cabinetry. Now, if you remember from the 2 videos previous, we've been creating families by going to Family, New, and a Family, which is fine. Remember, if I said you were creating like a chair or a couch or a sink or a toilet, anything that you could reuse in other projects, you would want to do that. You would want to come up here and create a family. If it's specific to this project, it's okay to use the in-place family editor that Revit provides so that you can make things custom, and it still be a family. Instead of using model lines. You could get away with just, if you want to keep it in 3D, you need to do this. You could get away with just coming up here and using your model lines and drawing this and saying, well, there's my counter. In a 2D plan, that would be fine. These would actually need to be symbolic lines. But in a 2D plan, you could get away with doing that. But if you really want things to be 3-dimensional, if you're planning on doing a rendering here later, or you just want the data to be 3D anyway, you're going to have to. It's going to be more involved than just drawing lines. You're actually going to have to put some thought into it. And speaking of 3D, we haven't taken an actual look at this in 3D, so let's go ahead and take a look at it just to check it out, what we have so far. So I'm going to go to View, and it's just select 3D View. So there it is. That's what you've been working on so far, and you can imagine the amount of time that this is going to save you in elevations of these walls, right? Like drawing these windows and the doors and all the details and the trim work that goes around the doors. That takes time in AutoCAD or any other 2D vector thing. So by creating this stuff 3-dimensionally, it saves you time when it comes to placing stuff on sheets. And that's why I recommend that you pretty much model everything that you can. And that's why we're not going to just draw 2D flat lines that are resting on this plane. We're actually going to extrude these cabinets up. Okay, there's also cabinets that are provided by Revit, but we're going to kind of create our own. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to Home, and then the arrow under Component, and then you see this model in place. Okay, this will allow you to create a custom component here in place. So I'll select that. And it's going to give you options here. And since this is cabinetry, I'm going to select Casework. Okay, Casework is cabinetry. So I'll select that. And I'll name this, let's see, this will be Kitchen Base Cabinets. Okay, and you'll notice my lines stay here. They gray out so that I can't change those, but you also notice we get the family editor that we had before. So now we have the family editor toolbar, but we're looking at our actual plan. So this is why the in-place is so nice, because we can sketch this in here and we don't need to know exact dimensions, and we won't have to jump back and forth. Now, there's a couple different ways that we could do this. Basically, this is an L shape, is what we're looking at. And if you've ever taken a 3D course before, or you're familiar with 3D, we really only talked about extrusion. We did a little bit of sweep here, but what I recommend that you do here is actually do a sweep of a solid object. So I'm actually going to select Sweep here, and I'm going to sketch my path. And now I want my path to start here, and I want the cabinets to come down to here, and I want my cabinets to stop about, I want to have an overhang here, so I'll stop at about 8'7", and I'll hit Escape. Okay, now remember from the family, this red dot represents the origin of the face, so when I draw, my sweep's going to actually start here, unless I move that to the other side here. I kind of want it to start down here, so I moved it down to the start point there. Okay, and then I check to say, okay, that's my path that I want, and now after I select a path, I need to actually edit my profile. So I need, the path is what's going to be extruded on that shape, or the shape that you're going to draw as follows. Like in SketchUp, I don't know if you are familiar with SketchUp, but the tool Follow Me is exactly like a sweep. Maybe just kind of showing you here will help. But this is my path that I want to follow. So I'll go to Edit Profile, and I'm going to need to pick an elevation view to draw this because I'm looking down on my floor plan now. I need to look at a view that's going to show me an elevation to where I can draw the elevation of my cabinets. So I'll pick either one of these is fine. If I pick the north elevation, I should be looking in the right direction. Actually looking. Okay, so I picked the north elevation, and I'm looking at the back of what would be the back of the residence. Here's that window in the kitchen, and here's the double windows, and this is where I said I needed to stop about 8'7". So this is resting up against that wall, this actual line right here. So my cabinets need to come out here. So my cabinets are going to be over in here. So I'll go ahead and draw those. I'll go ahead and start that off now. And I'm just going to rough in the lines. And I'll have a toe kick down here. And after I rough those lines in, I come back and select these and put more accurate dimensions in here. Okay. This does not include the countertop. This is actually just the cabinet itself. The countertop is going to be a separate entity. So, because that's going to be a separate entity, and I'm thinking ahead, we're going to want our sink to cut through the countertop and the cabinet. If I extrude this how it is now, it's going to be solid. Let me go ahead and add. Let me go ahead and do 34.5 here inches, and this sticks out 2 feet. Well, this is 20 inches. This is 24 inches. Should be 20. That should be 20. Well, yeah, 24, that's fine. This should actually, that's fine. Whoops. And this guy should be 4 inches. What I was going to say is this should actually probably be 19. So that should be 21 inches. That's better. Notice if we wanted to there's not really the ability for us to, in this view, work off the grid plane. So we'll kind of touch on that here in a second. But like I said, I was thinking ahead earlier. If I extrude this now, I'm going to have a solid shape. And let's go ahead and take a look at it. Check mark out of both of those, and I need to go back. I'll have to look at it from a 3D view here. So there's the sweep around that shape. So remember, I drew my I drew that line that went around the room, and then I also I just drew that shape, but I drew it from this view. So I drew it up against that wall because I was drawing from the back, if you remember. I can turn wireframe on here again so I can see through here. But you can see that's the shape that I just drew, and it swept that shape along that line. So that's basically how a sweep works, and you can use it to your advantage here. But what I was thinking about earlier is if I try and cut a sink through my countertop, it's not going to cut through this. So I need to kind of make this hollow on the inside somehow. So I'm going to go back to this guy in the top view this time. And this time I'm going to do a solid extrusion here. The sweep's good. Edit in place. Go to my home tab, and now I want to do a void. So now I want to do a void extrusion down into the cabinets to kind of make them hollow, because now they're just solid masses but I kind of want to give them a thickness here on the outside. So the best way to do this would be to come here to the top view and do it. And it doesn't have to be all the way. It doesn't have to be accurate. I'm not trying to worry about the inside of the cabinets. I just want them to be hollow. I don't want it to be solid. So what I'll do is I'll just come in here with a line. I could have drawn it hollow on the sweep, but then this end would have been open, and I don't want that end to be open. I'm trying to avoid that. That's why I'm cutting down into this. And I'm just, like I said, since I'm not worried about being accurate, I'm just dragging it close to the edge. But it doesn't have to be. What I'm seeing there is the toe kick. The inside, this inside line's the inside line of the toe kick. So this is the actually outside of the cabinet. But the goal here is not to be accurate. It's just so that when I cut my sink, the sink doesn't go into a solid form. There we go. And I really, like I said, I don't care how far down that goes. It can't go as far as the toe kick, so the toe kick's 20 inches down. So let's just make this go down 18 inches. Go to 3D view, see what's going on. Okay. When I drew this, I drew it on the ground work plane, so I actually need to change my work plane. So I'm going to edit my work plane. Let's see, best way to do this. I'm going to have to, so I'm going to have to actually create a reference plane. So I'm going to go to elevation view here, and I'm going to turn on wireframe. And I'm going to create a reference plane, just like we did when we, remember in the families, I'm going to create a reference plane in this in-place family. And I'm going to create it right on top of this. And I'm going to name it top of base. Okay, now I'm going to go back in here, edit in place, and I'm going to select that extrusion that I did, and now I'm going to edit the work plane, and I'm going to select the one that I just created. And you'll see that bump that up. And the depth needs to be negative. So now if I go to my 3D view, turn this back to shaded. Now it's hollow. So what we did was we moved that extrusion on top of the cabinets and extruded it down in to give me that hollow cabinet. So now when I put a sink over here, the sink will not be interrupted by the thickness or a solid cabinet here when I do the countertops. So that's good. So finish that for now, and change this back to headline. I don't really like the gray and the brown. It's kind of distracting, so I like to work with the black and white until I'm all done. Remember, we changed the sill height of this window, so that allowed us to get this cabinet in here with it, all the necessary components. So now we need to actually add a countertop. So to do that, I can use the same plane that I just created, right? So I can go to the Home tab, change my view to a top view here, and do an extrusion. I need to set my work plane now to that one that I created on top of base. And now if you were going to do any kind of like surface edge, you would want to do a sweep just like we did before. we're going to leave this kind of square for now. Again, time's always a factor. If you have any questions about how you can make a bull nose or something like that, you can always ask me, but it basically comes down to creating this and then creating another shape with a sweep around that, and then you join the two. So my overhang for this should be like an inch or so, inch and a half. Okay, this line is to the inside toe kick. This line is to the inside of the cut that I made. This is the outside of the cabinet. So I want to measure to that line, and it's on an inch now. Make it, whoops, make that 1.5 inches. It just depends. A lot of people like this flush. Some people like an overhang. I like it to actually overhang, so I'm going to make it overhang on this one. Just depends on the designer, I guess. Client, really. The designer doesn't even have a say in it. And it's good. I want that extrusion only to be 1.5 inches. And there should be a hidden line here. All right, so there's our countertop. If I go to 3D view, see the countertop resting there on top of the actual cabinets, and we got away with that because remember I made that plane, and that plane was resting on top of the counter, so I could work directly off of that. So now if I go up to my top view here, home, and then do a component, place a component, and let's see, load a family, plumbing fixtures, sink, kitchen triple is kind of big, single is kind of small, double would be nice. There's one. Okay, now it's saying that there's no tag for plumbing fixtures. We can go ahead and load one. That's fine, but we're not going to use it just yet. But plumbing fixture, the tags are going to be under annotations, and if it's not in this main folder, it'll be in architectural. It doesn't look like it's in this one, so we'll go to architectural. Doesn't even look like they have a tag for that, so we might skip that for now. Yeah, we'll skip that for now. Hit cancel. Close this. Okay, it's actually still, we still have to make sure that this cuts through this countertop here. So I want to actually take a trip into this and see what, I can't remember how, what this actually is hosted in. But whatever this is hosted in, this countertop needs to be part of it. So I'm going to edit family. That'll open up the sink family. And it actually, I'm going to check cut with void. Somehow that was unchecked. I'll hit cut with voids and apply that, and then I need to load into project. Overwrite the existing version. Huh. Still doesn't seem to want to cut through the countertop. All right, I'm going to jump back into this family. Go to a front view here. not really any voids. Bear with me 1 second here. I'm going to fade to black and see if I can't look up what it is I'm doing wrong here to get this thing to not. I don't want to waste your time anymore. So give me 1 second. Okay, so I was unsuccessful on modifying the family the easy way. So what we're going to have to do is kind of doctor this up the best that we can to try and get this to cut properly. Unfortunately, the sink family provided by Revit is just not geared to do that. So what we're going to do is make that happen. So let's take another view here. Just looking at the problem here, as you can see, is the countertop is going into the sink. Now, in a plan view, this isn't a problem. If you plan on rendering anything in the kitchen, you're probably going to want to take care of this now instead of later. So if you're not interested in fixing this for rendering purposes, you could go ahead and skip forward. It's kind of a tedious process, but let's go ahead and start it now. So what I need to do first is I need to cut a hole through the countertop, and I'm going to do that manually, and since the sink isn't going to do it for us. So I'll edit in place my countertop here, and I will do a void form, because remember, voids do cuts. And I'll select rectangle, and I'll draw a rectangle that is bigger than the bowls, but smaller than the outside of the sink. Okay, this is pretty much what you would do if you were going to create your own. Or I'm sorry, not create your own. If you were actually going to put a sink in a countertop, you would cut this rectangle for the bowls to fit in. And that's why we made if you remember back at the beginning of the sweep when we did the cabinets, that's why we actually took the time to separate those. Okay. So once you draw that, good. The height of this thing only needs to be 1.5 inches. The thickness of the countertop. Finish model. And that cuts the hole properly there. So let's take a look at this family. There are a couple things to note. I'm going to edit the family here. If you're still seeing a line, that crosses through here, you need to take a couple extra steps. Alright, go back into edit this thing. Okay, one thing to note is you want to hover over this and select until it says extrusion in the lower left hand corner, and then select. And you'll want to go to visibility settings and turn those on. Turn that to checked. And the same goes for the sweep here. Select the sweep and go to visibility settings and make sure that that's checked. Okay, that'll give you the 3D model, the geometry. And the final step would be to go to the right view. And where the countertop would be, just select that and make sure it's named top of counter. And then the last step would be to go to the top view and you're going to actually draw a mask, and you do that by going to the let's see, annotate tag, and mask region. Okay, mask pretty much covers up stuff. And you're going to draw, you'll pretty much just draw a square that's bigger than the square that you cut in to the countertop. Mine's not showing up, but I know that it causes problems. So you would create a mask like this, and then hit a check mark. Actually, you could make the mask the same size as your sink. That would be okay. That way you make sure that it covers up. So first I want to hit edit work plane. I want to make sure that that's on the top of the counter. That way it doesn't mask anything else. And then I'm going to edit the boundary. And I could make the boundary of my mask the same size. So I'm aligning the mask lines to the actual outside edges of the sink. And then you can hit load into project. And I've got 2 of them on there, so you can see it's actually overriding my actual whole sink. So if that happens, I can go back and find that mask. Make sure you select the mask and not the actual sink. And uncheck visible and draw on foreground. Load into project. And you'll get your sink back there. So again, that's something that should be taken care of automatically, but it's a tedious process. And again, if you're in plan view, it doesn't matter. The only reason I was showing you how to do that is in an event that you were going to render and you didn't want your countertop cutting through your sink. So now we can see inside of our sink bowls. And in the plan view, you should just have the lines of your sink there. Now I'm not going to go through creating I'm not actually going to go through creating the doors on the cabinet. At that point, if you were going to model, you would, I'm sure you could figure out that you just need to do extrusions on that face, the thickness of the doors. But for, like I said, that maybe I'll just go ahead and do one of them. But for time's sake, I'm going to go to a south elevation. I can't do all of the doors. I think once you see how you do a couple. All right, so when you get a mess like this, it's best to go ahead and create a section to work off of. So I'll go to back to my reference view here, create a view, and I'll create a section that is right there. And I'll tailor this section to this dashed line represents what is actually visible in your section, and since I'm only concerned about working in this area, that's all that I really need. So now I can work on the front plane of this guy, and while I have this section here, so you don't get a mess, because you end up with a bunch of these things, it's best to name these things correctly. So I will call this work. Since this isn't, I'm not planning on putting this view on a sheet. I will first thing call this working in caps, and then do south kitchen wall. Actually, yeah. All right, and I'll have to go back into this. Edit in place, and I'm just going to do an extrusion. Do I want to? Yeah. I'm going to have to create a plane to work off of so we don't have to do it later. So I'm going to go to the right. Actually, I'm going to cancel out of this. I'm going to go to a west view. And if I want to work on the face of the cabinets, that's this line here. This line here, actually. So I need to draw. Did I cancel edit in place? reference plane. All right, and I need to select that reference plane that I just created and name it a south face of cabinets or something, sink face. All right, and I'll go back to my section view and see. I need to go back in to edit this, so I'll select it, edit in place, extrusion, and I just named the plane sink cabinet face. So, you would need to know beforehand somewhat the sizes that you were going to put in here, but I'm kind of just eyeballing this one. Okay, so I should at least have I'm going to align all of the tops of these so that they all work together. So I'm going to lock these. This dimension should be 1.5 inches at least. This dimension should be 1.5 inches. Oops. Oh. All right. Well, if you're having a little dimension glitch like that, I don't see another one anywhere. You could always just draw your own. Yeah, change that to 1.5 inches. And delete that. Align your other lines to that line. Lock it. Again, you would need to figure this kind of stuff out beforehand. What I'll do is I'll just make this actually. Just to make my life easier, I could just work off of the center point of this. Oops. snap to the midpoint. Basically, actually this should be in line with the middle of the sink there. So the middle of the faucet's where I'm using that line, and then I'll offset this line 0.75 in both directions. 0.75 inches, that is. And this would be a good time for thin lines, because these lines are just too thick to see what's going on. And I need to remember to split this line and that line, and then use the trim tool. And I'm just going to drag these guys so that they're close. I would probably, in all honesty, I would probably add the cabinet faces later on in 3D Studio Max. I probably wouldn't include them in Revit unless I had to have them for elevations. It's just a little bit longer to do it this way. That's all. It's not necessarily wrong or right, but extrude those off the face a ½ inch. Right, so you can see there's some cabinet faces on there, and you would have to obviously create panels and stuff like that. It can become a bit of a pain. If you have standard cabinet sizes, you can use the ones that are provided by Revit. They have like vanities that you can stretch and so forth, but if you're doing something custom, you're going to have to build it individually. So it's just a time-consuming thing. So because this video, I want to show you all aspects of the project, we're just going to keep moving from that point. So you get the basic idea there. Okay, so then there's the upper cabinets. So we're going to do the same process. So I'm done with this now, for now, so I can hide this hide in view by elements, so it's not in the way anymore. And I'm going to do a component, model in place, casework. These are going to be the upper kitchen cabinets. And I'm going to do a sweep like before. Sketch my path. I want my path to start here, go to here. Okay, I need to stop it before the window. And as before, I want to drag that to the beginning. And then once you've got that, okay, edit profile. Whatever view works best. Turn this to wireframe so you can see through the walls. And we might try looking at the section view here. And the section view is a little cleaner. You could create a work plane here, or you could offset the final thing, and we'll offset the final thing when it hit OK there. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and draw geometry just so I don't lose my sweep here. I'm just going to draw a rectangle. Okay, we're getting that error because my section's cut a little bit deeper than the actual wall, actual start. So I can move my section, or I'll have to go to a south or north view. Just go to a south view. Decipher these lines for now. Okay, so here's the wall. And the wall comes down, and here's the countertop. And here's the front of the counter edge. And here's the front of the cabinet. Here's the toe kick. So these guys are actually going to be 15 inches deep. We'll go ahead and make them 12. And that's good, so you can check. And check again. Okay. Finish model. All right. It looks like it's not giving me the options that I was expecting there, so we're actually going to have to create a work plane here. I was hoping it would give me an offset. So go to the home and reference plane, and we're just going to sketch it up here so we can see it. And we'll move this to the top of the countertop and change that to 18 inches. 18 inches offset from the top of the countertop. And this will be bottom of uppers. And now I can select the upper cabinets that I created and change their work plane. Edit work plane, bottom of uppers. You'll see that shifts up there to that work plane, and then I can finish out of there. So there's my upper cabinets along that wall. For this one, you would probably just need to do I would keep it probably in the same model, but you would just need to add an extrusion separate. And I'd probably do it so I could draw on the plane that I just created. Probably do it from this view. Set my work plane to the one that I just created, bottom of uppers. Notice whenever you want to draw on a work plane, you can move to a work plane anywhere, but if you want to draw on a work plane, you have to be in a view parallel to it. So I have to be parallel to that work plane in order to draw on it. And here I can just do 12-inch deep cabinet. Alright, so there's that guy. And I'm guessing it probably needs to be adjusted height-wise. But since we did a sweep on this other cabinet, where'd it go? It's north. Here's our sweep and here's our extrude. We can just drag this up to match this guy. Should be able to align it to it. Whoops. And lock that way. If you change your sweep, it will change your extrusion. That will give the side of the other cabinet there. Alright, so a little bit more time here on the in-place stuff, but I think it's necessary. You would obviously add the doors the same way you would here. For sake of time, I'm not going to necessarily go into that. It's time to move forward. So go ahead, mess around, come back, and I'm going to go take a break myself, and we'll be right back. Alright, so I can already tell that this is going to be a two-part video. Just looking, we're up to about an hour and 45 minutes now that we've been following along. So here, after we get all the construction aspect of this done, we'll stop this video, and then the next video we'll focus on annotations and stuff like that. So I showed you the difficult way to basically create custom cabinetry in the event that a standard 33-inch base cabinet or 36-inch base cabinet or 39-inch base cabinet. You know how it goes in increments of 3. Just in case Revit doesn't have that. Okay, I don't want to give you the impression that you have to build every cabinet that there is, and I can almost guarantee if I don't mention this that it will show up in a comment somewhere that you don't have to do that, and that's very true. You don't have to do it if you're not building custom cabinetry. If it's custom, though, you're going to want to use an approach somewhat like this. If it's box cabinetry, meaning box cabinetry sticks to the increments of inches, Revit provides you with cabinets for kitchens and bath for that, and we're going to go ahead and do the bath cabinet that way and show you the 2 different ways of doing it. So obviously this way is going to be much easier on us. So I'm going to go to component, and I'm going to load a family because we need to load these in, and I will select casework, and you'll notice there's kitchen and bath. So if I go to kitchen, you'll notice there's all of these different cabinets that we can use, but they're stock cabinets. Okay, there's even countertop here, and there's a countertop with a sink. That would have saved us some time possibly. So I could have skipped the countertop that I use and maybe used this. Maybe I was thinking that's where, maybe I've used that in the past, and that's what I was thinking. So there are things in here that you can use, and these can be modified slightly here and there. Or you could open up the family and save it as a custom family and modify it yourself if you wanted to. That's always a possibility. If you know you're going to be making a lot of custom cabinets, it would probably be a good idea to create your own family type and such. So for the kitchen, or I'm sorry, the bathroom, we're just going to use a C. We will select a, see if we can get this to fit in there. Okay, 48 inches should fit. I'm going to hit the space bar to rotate it. 48 inches is going to be too big. To see if they have a smaller one. Hit escape and then select it. Nope, 48's about it. So too big for that spot. I'm going to have to delete that. You can see what I mean by custom. Sometimes things just don't fit. So we're going to be stuck, just for this example, using something that's not actually there. So I'm going to go to component, place a component, and load a different family. Casework. And I'll just use double door sink unit. It's fine. Double door sink unit, and we'll use a 39 will fit in there. Hit the space bar. Wherever the cursor is, that's the back of it, so that goes up against the wall. And let's drop that in there. Looks like I missed. So you need to just drag it out. Align it here. Align this here. We've got some more space if we can take another step up here. 42. $45 fit? Yeah, it just fits perfectly. So the 45 will fit in there. If we look at this 3D view, you'll notice that it doesn't have a countertop yet. It's hitting my door jamb there, so this would have to be a little. Let's look at some of the properties that we can adjust. So if I go to the regular properties, or the instance properties, I guess, you'll see this is what we have. However, if I edit the type, see there's some more options here. So I'm going to duplicate this one and say 45-inch shallow or something, 21. Do 45 by, it's probably 21 inches now. What's the depth on it now? 2 feet. It's actually at 2 feet. It should be at 21 inches. So I'll change my depth to 21 inches. That way I have space here. Now I need to do, now I need to go to Home, Component, Casework, Bathroom, Countertop with, you know, either a round or square sink. We'll do a round sink in the bathroom. Spacebar, again, we'll rotate this guy. And I'll put this up in this corner. Like that. And then you can use the drag bars to just drag it up against the wall there till it locks. Alright, and we're going to edit this as well. So this is going to be 22 inch depth. There we go. We'll go to a 3D view there. There's the countertop on top of there with the holes already cut for it, which saves us time as well. So that was obviously quicker than doing the custom stuff. So if you can get these to work, go ahead and use them. If you need something custom, you're going to have to do it that way. Alright, so I'm going to drop a sink in here. Components. I have look at sinks, plumbing fixtures. It's an ugly sink. Kohler has a good collection. Kohler has a good collection of stuff that you can bring in if you're interested in finding other blocks. But we'll just use this one for now. I feel like the other one was. And I'm going to have to rotate this guy. So use the rotate tool and rotate this 90 degrees. And I'll use my arrow keys just to nudge it. Oops, wrong thing. I don't want to nudge the countertop. I just want to nudge this guy. Nudge it back from the counter face a little bit, even though it doesn't quite fit perfect on the hole. That's better. Yes, it's a really big sink. You know why that is? It's because it's a really small countertop. I cut the back of the countertop off, so we're a little close there. So we might want to go in here and edit this type of this. Remember, I changed this to 22. I'm going to go ahead and change this to 23 and change this to 20. Or change the depth to 23 as well. There we go. That's a little better. Yeah, cool. So the bathtub goes in here. Let's just go ahead and place that. Now the bathtub that's supposed to go in here isn't here. It would require. You can see it doesn't quite fit. So we're gonna fudge this. We would have to create our own custom family for the shower that fits in here. It's a custom shower. So just to show that we placed this component in here, though, I wanted to put this in here. So we're gonna make some adjustments to everything here. So use my align tool and I'm just going to drag this back to the back of the. That'll work. Really awkward here. It's okay. we're not really using this. We're using it for learning purposes. And then there's a toilet here. Let's see. What am I doing here? Component. And you want to make sure that this is, like 18 inches or so off of that wall and the other wall. So we'll just make it 18 off of this one. And actually, since I know that it's going to be okay either way, basically what I'll do is annotate and do an align dimension from that wall to that wall to there. And once you come out here and do this, you can hit this equals, and that'll Revit will divide the distance equally on both sides, so you can place things that way as well. And when you're done, just delete it, and it's going to give you a warning. You can just hit OK here. And there's a toilet up here. This one's a little tighter, so we'll stick to the 18 inches off of this wall. Okay, if for some reason it starts measuring to the center of the wall again, you remember we talked about that in a previous video. We can go to manage, additional settings, temporary dimensions, and measure to the face of the wall. And we need a little vanity here, just a little guy, so one that we already have used here, the 24-inch should be fine. And obviously it's going to need a countertop. Oops. Alright, so I messed up there. I'm going to undo, hitting Control Z. I'll place that again. This time I'm going to do it a little differently. I'm going to place the bowl. Actually, I'm going to rotate it first, and then I'm going to make sure I place the bowl somewhat centered. And this time, instead of trying to stretch one side, I'm going to stretch this side this way, and this side this way. And our bowl will be somewhat centered. You can adjust that now. I want to snap to that midpoint there that keeps popping up. There we go. All right. Now there's actually a fireplace that goes over here, but I'm going to show you how to use the we're not going to actually create that in Revit because it would just be way too much. So for this, I'm kind of just going to show you what you would do in the event that you just kind of wanted to draw 2D lines. You're still going to want to create a component in place. We'll call it casework. and we'll call this fireplace wall, because it's a whole wall detail. And that's why I say we're not really going to go into in Revit, because it has bookshelves here and a fireplace in the middle, and then more bookshelves. Just way too much for this video to handle. So we're just going to make 2D representation. Select a model line there. Okay, this guy is, see, this should be about 21 inches. And I'm going to come to my midpoint here. Come to the midpoint of this line. I'm going to offset in both directions 2 feet. Whoops. Offset, let's try that again. Actually type in the box here. Sometimes I get confused with myself and I think that I'm working on AutoCAD, so I just start typing numbers and Revit freaks out. Alright, and I'm going to offset back 16 inches. And at 30 degrees, I'm going to come back and butt into the other line there. So you can see it's snapping to 30 degrees. And trim this. And I want to offset 3 inches. Oops, make sure you offset to the other side there. And I'm just going to delete these other lines. If I select these lines, holding down Control, I just shift multiple things, select multiple things. See. Yeah, okay, that's fine. And I'm going to offset this line back 2 inches. And then I'm going to trim this line. Split this one. Well, probably just best to just drag the circles back to that intersection for this. I'm going to change these to hidden lines. I'm not sure where that came from. Alright, that'll work. I'll check like that to finish the model, and that'll drop that in there. Oh, forgot the shells on the top. One more line here. Edit model in place to go back into it. This needs to be 12 inches. And it also needs to be a hidden line. So these are the things up above. And just to save me hassle in the end, I'll lock those together. Finish that. Alright, so a couple hours later, there we go. We have all the walls, all the plumbing fixtures, all the casework. And see anything else, we can just start placing furniture and start adding. Actually, before we place any furniture, we'll do the construction plan first. We'll worry about the furniture last. If it gets to be too much, we'll skip the furniture plan and just focus more on the construction plan. Because the furniture plan is, like I said, is pretty much just dropping furniture in random places. That's not hard, so I'm not going to go into great depth on the furniture plan. So yeah, this is a good stopping point for anybody following the video. And once you get this far, I'll be expecting part 2 of this video to come, and that's going to entail the annotations and the dimensions and room tags and window tags and all that good stuff, and schedules and sheets. So stay tuned.